All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at a really fascinating chapter in the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi chapter 1. It takes place 600 years after Lehi and his family left Jerusalem. And we're following Nephi, son of Helaman. He's entrusted his own son, also named Nephi, with these sacred records. It's a lineage of faith, but it's definitely not a peaceful time.
Right. There's a real sense of urgency and division in this chapter. You have those who believe in the prophecies about Christ's coming and those who are absolutely against it, to the point of issuing a deadly ultimatum.
Yeah, it's serious. Verse 9 says, "Now it came to pass that there was a day set apart by the unbelievers, that all those who believed in those traditions should be put to death, except the sign should come to pass, which had been given by Samuel the prophet." Can you have us in that kind of pressure? Your life depends on a sign from heaven.
It really makes you think about how strong faith has to be to withstand that kind of opposition. Even today, we face situations where our beliefs are challenged, where we have to decide what we're going to cling to when things get tough.
Absolutely. And you see Nephi, the younger Nephi, grappling with this. Verse 10 says, "Now it came to pass that when Nephi, the son of Nephi, saw this wickedness of his people, his heart was exceedingly sorrowful. He sees his people on the brink of destruction because of their faith, but instead of giving up, he turns to prayer." Verse 11, "And it came to pass that he went out and bowed himself down upon the earth and cried mightily to his God in behalf of his people, yea, those who were about to be destroyed because of their faith in the tradition of their fathers." I think we've all been there at some point, haven't we? That feeling of desperation, of needing something bigger than ourselves to lean on.
It's a universal human experience. And what's remarkable here is how Nephi's prayer is answered, not just with words of comfort, but with a promise of undeniable signs. It's like God is saying, "I hear you, and I'm going to show you my power."
And he delivers. Listen to verse 13. "Lift up your head and be in good cheer, for behold, the time is at hand, and on this night shall the sign be given, and on the morrow come I into the world, to show unto the world that I will fulfill all that which I have caused to be spoken by the mouth of my holy prophets." It gives me chills every time I read it.
It's such a moment of hope and anticipation. And then verse 15, "And it came to pass that the words which came unto Nephi were fulfilled according as they had been spoken. For behold, at the going down of the sun there was no darkness. And the people began to be astonished because there was no darkness when the night came."
Think about that. A night with no darkness. What would it have been like to experience something like that? It would completely change your perspective, wouldn't it?
You would have to question everything you thought you knew. And that's exactly what happens. Some are filled with awe, others with fear. Verse 16 says, "And there were many who had not believed the words of the prophets, who fell to the earth and became as if they were dead, for they knew that the great plan of destruction which they had laid for those who believed in the words of the prophets had been frustrated."
I can't even imagine. They literally fell to the ground in shock. But even with such an incredible sign, some still doubted. Verse 17 says, "For the sign which had been given was already at hand, and they began to know that the Son of God must shortly appear. Yea, in fine, all the people upon the face of the whole earth, from the west to the east, both in the land north and in the land south, were so exceedingly astonished that they fell to the earth." It's like they were trying to rationalize away what they just witnessed.
It really shows you the power of belief, both for good and for ill. We see that even in the face of overwhelming evidence. Some people will cling to their doubts. It makes you wonder, what would it take for us to change our minds about something we strongly believe in?
Right. And then another amazing sign appears. As if the night with no darkness wasn't enough. Verse 19, "And it came to pass that there was no darkness in all that night, but it was as light as though it was midday." And verse 21, "And it had come to pass, yea, all things, every whit, according to the words of the prophets. And it came to pass also that a new star did appear, according to the word."
It's like the heavens themselves are declaring the birth of Christ. You can almost feel the excitement and anticipation building. But even amidst these miraculous signs, we see a hint of the challenges to come.
Yeah.
Verse 22 tells us, "And it came to pass that from this time forth there began to be lyings sent forth among the people by Satan to harden their hearts, to the intent that they might not believe in those signs and wonders which they had seen. But notwithstanding these lyings and deceivings, the more part of the people did believe and were converted unto the Lord."
It's a reminder that even when faced with undeniable truth, there will always be those who try to twist it or explain it away.
It speaks to the constant battle between faith and doubt, between truth and deception. And it's something we still grapple with today. How do we discern truth from falsehood? How do we stay grounded in our beliefs when we're bombarded with so many different voices and perspectives?
It's a tough question. And it seems like even within the community of believers, there were differences in understanding. Verse 24 talks about a group who began to question the continued relevance of the law of Moses. And there were no contentions, save it were a few that began to preach, endeavoring to prove by the scriptures that it was no more expedient to observe the law of Moses.
Yeah.
Now, in this thing they did err, having not understood the scriptures.
This highlights the complexities of interpreting scripture, doesn't it? It's not always black and white. There can be different perspectives, even among those who share the same faith.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how they eventually come to understand their error. Verse 25 says, "But it came to pass that they soon became converted, and were convinced of the error which they were in. For it was made known unto them that the law was not yet fulfilled, and that it must be fulfilled in every whit." They're willing to acknowledge their mistakes and embrace a deeper understanding. I think there's a powerful lesson in that for all of us.
It speaks to the importance of humility, of being open to learning and growing in our faith. We don't have all the answers, and that's okay. What matters is that we keep seeking truth, keep striving to understand God's will.
Exactly. And despite these internal challenges, the year ends on a hopeful note. Verse 26 tells us, "And thus the 92nd year did pass away, bringing glad tidings unto the people because of the signs which did come to pass, according to the words of the prophecy of all the holy prophets." It's a reminder that even amidst trials and disagreements, the fulfillment of prophecy can bring a profound sense of joy and purpose.
It's like a breath of fresh air, a moment of peace and unity before the storm that's brewing on the horizon.
Because even as they're celebrating the birth of Christ, a new threat emerges: the Gadianton robbers. Verse 27 says, "And it came to pass that the 93rd year did also pass away in peace, save it were for the Gadianton robbers who dwelt upon the mountains, who did infest the land."
These robbers represent the persistent undercurrent of evil in the world, that darkness that never seems to fully disappear. They're a constant reminder that even in times of spiritual awakening, we have to be vigilant, we have to stand guard against the forces that seek to undermine faith and righteousness.
And their influence spreads quickly. Verse 28 says, "And it came to pass that in the 94th year they began to increase in a great degree, because there were many dissenters of the Nephites who did flee unto them, which did cause much sorrow unto those Nephites who did remain in the land." It's a reminder that negativity and corruption can be contagious, especially when people feel disillusioned or disconnected.
And it's not just limited to the Nephites. We see in verse 29 that the Lamanites are also impacted, and there was also a cause of much sorrow among the Lamanites. For behold, they had many children who did grow up and began to wax strong in years, that they became for themselves, and were led away by some who were Zoramites, by their lyings and their flattering words, to join those Gadianton robbers.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it, to see how easily people, especially the younger generation, can be led astray by false promises and empty words. It makes you think about the importance of mentoring, of surrounding ourselves with people who will uplift and strengthen us.
It's a reminder that we're all connected, that the choices we make can have ripple effects far beyond our own lives. And that's something we need to be mindful of, especially in a world where negativity and division seem to be spreading so rapidly.
Yeah, it really does make you think about how quickly things can change. This chapter has been a roller coaster of emotions, from the awe-inspiring signs to the persistence of doubt and the emergence of these new challenges.
Yeah, it really shows you how, even when good seems to triumph, we can't become complacent. The forces of darkness are always lurking, seeking to exploit our weaknesses and sow discord.
Absolutely. But, it's not a message of despair. It's a call to action. It reminds us to, stay strong in our faith, be vigilant in defending truth, and to be a source of light and goodness in a world that desperately needs it.
This chapter is full of profound lessons about faith doubt, the fulfillment of prophecy, and the importance of seeking understanding. But what resonates most with you?
For me, it's the reminder that even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges, we're not alone. We have a God who hears our prayers, who offers guidance and comfort, and who empowers us to overcome adversity. And even when we make mistakes, there's always room for repentance and growth.
That's a beautiful takeaway. As we conclude our exploration of 3rd Nephi chapter 1, I encourage you to ponder this question. How can we apply these lessons to our own lives? How can we be beacons of hope and faith in a world that often feels dark and uncertain?